And now to cover the two EVs. I've got a BYD Atto 3 with a 60 kilowatt hour battery and a BYD Seal with an 82 kilowatt hour battery. And, you know, each of these EVs, like we do drive them around a lot and we do typically swap the cars. What that means is essentially when one car is full at 100%, we drive that around for a couple of days while the other car is in the garage charging typically over a 2-day period during that 3-hour free window. And what I get with a 20 kilowatt inverter, I've got a Sigenergy hybrid inverter, is usually about, look, it can top out at about 21 and 22 kilowatt inbound from the grid during that time. And I could have anything on. You know, I typically load balance my inbound energy usage. So, for example, over the 4 batteries, I'll only tell the Home Assistant to set up the charging of the Sigenergy for about 15 or 16 kilowatt inbound, and I leave the rest for the house. So typically from the grid, I can get 21 to 22 kilowatt. That's kilowatts per hour. So we're talking about 21 to 22 kilowatt hours. I can draw in quite a bit of current and quite a bit of power from the grid during that time. And I don't do that every day, of course, but when I do need to charge either of the EVs, yeah, I can get to that stage where I do that. And I've also got the charging system for the vehicles, and that's MyEnergi Zappi charger. It's a 3-phase charger. I typically run it only on the single phase because both of the BYDs, the Atto 3 is a 2023 model, the BYD Seal is a 2024 model. They've got AC charging capable at 7 kilowatts only. So you can't go faster than that, unfortunately, with those vehicles. I know with the newer vehicles, they support 11 kilowatt, but the MyEnergi Zappi charger, being a 3-phase charger, it can go to 22 kilowatt charging if the vehicle that's plugged into it supports that type of charging. So every single day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., I fill the home battery. Now, if EVs need charging, I would plug in an EV or have it pre-plugged in and let Home Assistant detect it, let Home Assistant, talk to the MyEnergi Zappi charger and charge the vehicle. It actually charges early in the morning and it turns it off just after 2 p.m. So I'll describe that in a little bit more detail. The way I do it is I program Home Assistant to actually kick off the charging of the vehicle at 10:45 a.m. and it actually disables the charging at 2:15 p.m. Now, you would say, well, wouldn't you be paying for that 10:45 or that 15-minute period between 10:45 and 11 a.m.? Answer is no, because I've always got battery in the home battery system. So it'll just start using that battery. Even if it's like 3%, even if it's like 4%, it'll still use that because there's enough for 15 minutes before it actually changes the home battery to actually pull in from the grid. So for me, this works quite well. And that allows me to not get the 3 hours a day of charging, but actually get 3.5 hours a day. And when you work that out, 7 kilowatts, per hour, we're talking 21 kilowatts. I normally charge the Atto 3 when I hit about 20%, sometimes 30%, and I charge it up to 70 or 80 or sometimes 100%. So I do that typically once a week for the Atto, and similar for the Seal. I typically do that once a week because, we do drive them and we top them up and we do all that sort of stuff. So home battery, EVs, and let's talk about now the remaining load. So every single day, I would fill up the battery, the home battery, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Now, Zero Hero offers the $1 benefit per day if you don't use electricity between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Now, they give you a limit of 30 watt. Some people have a challenge, getting under the 30 watt. For me, the way I do it in the Sigenergy is, for example, if I know I'm not going to be using too much energy, I just export and I default that in the Home Assistant package. So what that means is I'll export typically 2 or 3 kilowatt per hour. to the grid, and that will make sure that the Sigenergy exports during that 3-hour period. Because if you're exporting, obviously you can't import. So that confirms that there will be no import during that 3-hour period. However, let's say I export 7 kilowatt hours, and I'll drain the battery up to say 45%, and I'll set a limit there to say, okay, I'm not going to go under the 45% mark, so it'll turn off the export of the battery. Well, I do stand a chance there of actually slightly importing, because everyone knows that the Sigenergies, they're a bit noisy on their heartbeat networks and things like that. So if I want to guarantee that I'll never get an import, then typically what you can do with the Sigenergy is make sure you're exporting for the 3 hours, something so small like 100 watt. And to do that in the Sigenergy app, you just put in 0.1 and save it. And what that means, it'll do 100 watt per hour. And of course, that's nothing, right? But it'll guarantee that during that export period, you will not import. So that's one of the workarounds if you're really struggling to stay under that 30 watt. And, there are solutions if you've got Fox ESS and, other types of home batteries, there are solutions for that. And that's called compensation. You can set a compensation mode, or your installer can organize that for you. You set that to say minus 30 watts, and the Fox ESS won't export during that period. So the advantage of not importing during the 6 to 9 p.m. is you get that $1 extra every single night. And, with the service fee I've got with GloBird, for me, it's $1.50. Of course, that's changes per state because that's reflected based on your wholesale provider, how much they charge for network access. I know I'm with Endeavour Energy as the wholesale provider in my area. And, closer to the city in Sydney, you're looking at Ausgrid. And Ausgrid is at $1.39 from memory. So, it is a little bit cheaper, but, that's passed on essentially, by GloBird to the customer. And that's considered a no-use credit, that $1. And I do achieve that every single night, as you can see from a screen snapshot that I've supplied here. So, obtaining that $1 no-use credit plus the export, and typically I do an export of 10 to 15 kilowatts every evening. That adds typically $1, $1.20 per night. So overall, by the end of the billing cycle, I am always in credit. And that's an advantage to me. And of course, I've never had a bill since joining GloBird with payment to GloBird directly. So let's now talk about my actual experience. Number one, the good. The free charging window, that's an absolute game changer for me. Now, a lot of people use that word game changer, but it really is. Now, in certain states in Australia, this is going to become law by the 1st of July, but it is limited to 24 kilowatt hours. But at the moment, like when I first joined GloBird, there was no limit, absolutely unlimited. But a couple of weeks ago, they introduced a 50 kilowatt hour limit per day. And what that means essentially is that not that they limit you to the 50 kilowatt drawn in from the grid, but it's done per billing cycle. So your plan, if it's 50 kilowatt hours per day on a billing cycle of say 30 days, that gives you 1500 kilowatts. Now, I looked at my last month's bill, and my draw, as you can see on the screen, was just over 1,000 kilowatt hours for the entire month. So, and that's with the 2 EVs, that's with a pool filter that runs every single day, that's with air conditioning, that's with everything. And I'm still not able to even reach that 1,500. So for me, it's not a bother at all. But, if you are a high user, higher than me, for example, and, who knows, maybe your EVs charge at 22 kilowatt hours at those types of rates, yeah, then you could possibly hit that limit. But essentially all they do is they're not going to block energy or anything, but what they will do is anything above that, they'll just charge you on the standard rates that your plan applies for. So end of the day, for me, the free charging window is absolutely critical. I cannot, especially in winter, charge my home battery, just my home battery from solar. It just won't work because the maximum I produce during winter is 15 kilowatts. That's it. I won't produce more than that unless it's a really sunny day. And most of the days in winter, you know, you get clouds and rain and things like that. So this is a game changer for me and I absolutely love it. One other thing I would say is GloBird does have a referral program. If you're joining GloBird, I'll have a link in the description below, which is my referral link. You'll get $50 credit into your account when you sign up. Of course, you don't have to, but why not? I mean, it's there. You might as well use it.